Hi, I'm Chuck Samikian.
And I'm John Tolheimer. Welcome to the HR Stories Podcast,
where there's a lesson in every story.
All right, Chuck. Wow, man, that was last week. Do you remember what we were talking about last week? Do you remember what we were talking about last week?
I remember. We were talking about the things that are keeping HR and managers, but mainly for this podcast, HR folks up, awake all night. We went through the first four from last week, and I can recap those. Issue 1 was talent shortages and skills gaps. Issue 2 was employee wellness, well-being, and burnout. Issue 3 was AI and workforce automation. Issue 4 was DEI under pressure. And we are going to kick off this week's episode with issue 5, compliance and legal complexity. John, take us away.
You know, I got to go back to last week. And I just have to say, avocado.
Yes. Folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, avocado.
Last week episode, hear what Chipotle is doing with avocados in the workplace. But yeah, let's talk about compliance, Chuck, because you know it's getting hairier, it's getting harder. Every day. It's getting harder and harder every day to stay up and stay compliant in the workplace.
Let's talk about Cisco. They've got a proactive model, and they every year when it comes to compliance and legal complexity, they conduct a company-wide pay equity audit. They check for disparities across gender, race, and ethnicity.
Yeah, and they just don't look at base pay, right? They examine bonuses, stock options, benefits, and access to.
Yeah, and look, I stopped right there because I thought, is this the time that I talk about, like, mind-blowing that there's actually a movie about Lily Ledbetter, who is like the patron saint of pay equity. And we talked about Lily Ledbetter in one of our podcasts, Supreme Court cases that changed HR, and they're actually making a movie that's being released now in May 2025, and it's crazy. It's like it's a drama, full blown. You could go right now to an AMC theater and watch this movie called Lily, which probably by next week will be on like Amazon or something. But still, folks, you've got to see that movie. If you're in HR, if you're in management, you've got to see that movie. Anyways, going back to Cisco, where they look at that pay equity, you know, the result, the result, fewer lawsuits, boom, okay, better reputation, and employees who trust that fairness matter. I think that fewer lawsuits, I mean, that's definitely something that can be measured, especially in a big company like Cisco.
Yeah, and again, so kind of going back, right? Because compliance is not just about pay equity, right? Yes, that's one thing of it. We need to make sure that we're getting pay equity right? We have the Equal Pay Act of 1963 that says male workers and female workers, if they're doing the same job, should be getting the same amount of money. And I love that you brought Lily into this, Lily Ledbetter. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait to check it out. We are now giving movie reviews. Chuck, did you ever think we'd get to that point on our podcast?
Yes, well, who gets an HR movie? Who gets an HR movie? The last HR movie in my world starred George Clooney, where he's flying around the world to lay people off.
I was going back even farther because we're not far from the Library of Congress Auto-Visual Library. This weekend, they're playing Norma Ray.
Okay, right? There you go. Yeah.
Right, going back to that, right? All right, so I think when we think about compliance, and it's really this is HR for sure. One of our roles in HR is to make sure our organization is consistently compliant. I mean, right? That's the goal. That's what you need to do. And here's the thing, Chuck, and I talk about this in my class. And so in HR, in payroll, we create processes, we create systems. As part of those processes and systems, we need inputs, right? For us to do our job, we need inputs from employees, from managers and supervisors and executives. We get their inputs, we put them in, and then we give outputs, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes that's, investigations you were talking about on the last show, or it could be pay things, right? So anyway, all there. And so if our inputs are incorrect, it doesn't matter what we do as processing, we're going to be kicked out, right? We're not going to have great outputs. And so one of the things that I would suggest that you all do, if you want your organization to be compliant, train your managers and supervisors on employment laws.
You have to.
Train your managers, because managers are promoted, but they're not given employment law. They're not like, okay, you're a manager now, and here's the employment law handbook, go read it. They're just expected to kind of pick it up by osmosis, but that doesn't work. And that's where, like, when Chuck and I talk about these stories all the time on the podcast, I will say, and Chuck challenged me on this, about 75% of them are because a manager didn't do what they were supposed to do, and the company's trying to cover for that manager.
Yeah, it's a huge issue, and when you look at all the lawsuits, and we've in all of our podcast stories, we always come down to it was the manager. Now there have been some times where it was the HR person, but it was the manager. And we're talking about the frontline manager who just didn't know what they didn't know, and got the company in trouble.
Yeah. And so again, right. So that's what compliance is about. And so if that's keeping you up, audit. Right. And one of the ones, I'll just throw it out there. If you're not auditing your I-9s right now, that's a mistake. I would go and do your audit right now. Like, I would literally stop listening to this podcast and go start doing your I-9 audit. Chuck, come back.
Okay.
So kind of making sure we do that. Audit your work, or have somebody come in and audit your work. You can do that as well. Train your frontline managers on employment, right? They got to know. They're not HR. They are not HR, but they need to know. And so the more you train them on ADA, FMLA, harassment, discrimination, I could go on, the better your organization is going to be, and the better your culture will be as well. And then definitely partner with your legal team. Now, for some of us, our legal team's not going to be in our building. They're going to be some gentleman or woman across the city that we're going to have to build that relationship and do that. The more they know about our company, the better they can protect us.
Yeah.
So having those conversations is critical.
All right, let's go on to number 6, John, retention and the employee experience. Finding talent is hard, but losing it is expensive.
Yeah, that's a great line. I love that. And so in last week's episode, right, when we started this countdown, the number one was getting talent, right? And
right.
Using skill building and doing that. And now it can become very expensive. So look, Walmart, heard of Walmart? It's a little store. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Right.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. They announced a $1 billion with a B investing in training programs for frontline employees, from GED support, right? So helping them to get their high school equivalency, to career pathways and tech roles inside the company.
Yeah, because development equals loyalty.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode under another heading, but I do think it's important for us as HR folks and leaders and managers as well, right? Kind of falling into that categories, is that we have to do what we can to retain employees. I created a workshop for a client of mine around employee retention.
Yeah.
And there was, and I can't remember all, we had 9 different steps. Look at that, 9. Wonder why that number came up again. We had 9 different steps on things that you can do to retain your employees. Things like hiring for longevity, making sure that you're in compliance and payroll, right? Making sure those things are done, building trust with the organization, being transparent. But the one that came up, right, here it comes again, Chuck, the stay interview.
Yes.
Ask people why they stay and then lean into it. Lean into it. Hire people that want that same thing. Lean into it. Make sure that you're doing that is important. Sal, here's what happened. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast. I was coaching a individual that was working for a accounting firm, a large accounting firm down in Tennessee, and he had an employee that had quit the organization he was working for, went somewhere else, and came back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so what happened? Why did he come back? Because he didn't like the other job. He didn't realize how good it was here. And sometimes we have to teach our employees how good it is, right? And so kind of lean into it. And just because you're like, oh, this is really good, you have to tell them why this is good. So kind of doing that in there as well. All right, so some things we can do, right? I kind of put some things, but I'll give you 3 more tips and tricks. Build visible career ladders, right? So where do I go from here, right? Am I stuck in this role? And give them like, oh, well, here you can do it. And one of the things is, this is where that skill building comes in. If they have a skill set, right? They may, Chuck, you're the perfect example. I'm going to use your story.
Yes. Great.
Right. So you're at Disney in the operations and you're doing a great job with customer service and you're meeting with people and handling all the customers and doing that. And they see that as, hey, well, that's a really important skill. You can get along with people. You can get information from people. Let's put you in an interviewing role. And then suddenly you got this career in HR. And now you're one of the high experts in the hospitality when it comes to HR. Right. And so I think those are the kind of things. It's about the skills, not like, oh, they've never done this before, but do they have the skills you can develop so they can do it? All right. So I'll get off my soapbox. Reward skill building, not just tenure, and then celebrate internal promotions publicly. Right. People like to be celebrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So moving on to 7, leadership development and manager effectiveness. These are all seem to be tied together in a string, I would say, in some regards, John. So let's take a look at number 7, leadership development.
Yeah, right. So talk about Delta Airlines. I know you have a story around Delta Airlines and what they're doing there. I just want to call out my step niece's husband works for Delta. I had to get that all right.
Okay.
We don't really use titles in our family, so.
Okay. Well, maybe he's familiar with Ready, Set, Lead. Ready, Set, Lead is a program Delta Airlines rolled out that trained over 10,000 frontline leaders in coaching, feedback, and, ready, emotional intelligence.
We should have a sound effect for emotional intelligence. Poor managers isn't just bad for business, it's bad for health, right? We talked in the last episode about burnout and retention. Burnout, and then it's also bad for retention as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so kind of here it is, Chuck. I'm going to say it. Are you ready? He's ready. There's no such thing as bad employees, only bad managers.
Whoa. Okay.
I'm
well,
telling you. Right?
I've seen some pretty doozy employee things.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But here's my question for you. Who hired that person?
Who allowed them to get to that point?
And who allowed them to get to that point, right? Yeah, sure. Employees do dumb things. Don't get me wrong. But when I look at overall, it's the manager did something wrong. Somewhere along the way, the manager did something wrong. So anyway, let me ask you, Chuck. I know you work with leaders in your organization. What are 1 or 2 things that you think all leaders need to be trained on?
Well, I mean, we talked about compliance and such, so that's not really a leadership trait. But I would have to say how to talk to employees, just how to talk to employees to get them to do what they need to do, how to lead, not to push. how to have employees follow you rather than you standing behind them and pushing them. I'm always struck by the amount of situations I deal with in my office where employees come in and their managers were mean to them. It wasn't that they did anything like it wasn't a calm conversation, and it wasn't um, a graceful or gracious conversation. It could be a condescending conversation, a you're an effing idiot conversation, a yelling and I'm thinking, really, where did you learn how to talk to people in general and to employees? So I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I would add on top of that is setting clear expectations from day one. Right. And so that is, to me, I always talk about it. Every one of I'm doing workshop and leadership training, it's all about setting clear expectations. Because if you can get an agreement, like these are the expectations of the job, then anytime they're out of those expectations, you have a conversation. Remember, we talked about the expectations, you agreed to them. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, I need to do that. All right, great. Right. We're having those conversations. And I think a lot of managers don't do that. They don't take the time up front to be like, okay, the expectations of this job are. Right. And I will say to everyone that's listening, if you do need leadership training, both Chuck and I are certified in leadership training. We love doing leadership training. It's my passion. I got a program that I'm not announcing yet that's coming that is going to be a breakthrough in leadership training. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, Chuck, but definitely reach out to us and we will come in and do training. We love doing it. And we are, I will say, reasonable.
Yeah, it's big, and I can't wait till you announce it. So, all right, we're wrapping down to our final two issues. Issue 8, remote hybrid work challenges. That still is in the news, isn't it?
It's one of those things that pops up, right? We think, oh, it's over, and then another company says, we're bringing everyone back. How are we going to do that? And so AT&T tried mandating employees back to the office and faced massive pushback, including losing top talent who valued flexibility. And I think there was just a story in the news. Who was this? There was an organization that was like, yeah, we're telling people they need to come back in. And I was talking to somebody and they're like, yeah, you need to be in the office Tuesday. One of my best friends is now back to 5 days a work week, right? They went back from 0 days to 1 day to 3 days and 5 days. They kind of slowly brought it in, which probably is a good method to do that. But people are pissed off in his office, right? They're pissed off that they have to come in. I have one of his friends works like an hour away, and now they have to drive in, and that's just not productive time as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, flexibility isn't just a perk anymore. It's part of that value proposition for deciding, do I go work for this company or this company for a lot of industries.
Yeah. And again, right, there are industries, I would say your industry, hospitality, it's not like, well, you guys can all work remote, bartenders. We don't need you here. Right. And so I think that becomes an issue, right? Mm-hmm. And so I worked at a company that was kind of split because there were people that they had to do their job in place. And then other people, like, they could do it anywhere. And so when you let one part of the company go and do their job anywhere and the other people are here, that builds tension. You got to figure out how to relieve that tension. I do think the best model, and I don't remember the company off top of my head, was, all right, every year we will announce the 12 weeks that everyone has to be here, or the 12 times, or the 12 periods. And then you just kind of build around it. And then the teams could be like, all right, well, we still want you in 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and just being very clear about that and why you're doing it does help. So, so if your hybrid's on your radar, these are the simple things. We talk about them all the time, Chuck. Focus on your outcomes, not your desk time, and build flexibility in your policies and mean it. And I think flexibility isn't about hybrid work. It could be like, We're going to allow you to go see your kid play softball. We're going to allow you to go to doctor's appointments.
Right. Without the guilt trip.
Right.
Without the guilt trip. Right.
Oh, you're leaving. Oh my God, that's terrible. What are we going to do without you? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Or here we go again. So I got you. So hey, but I got you on something else, John. It's issue number 9.
Oh.
9 out of 9. Agility.
9 out of 9.
9 out of 9.
Building organization agility, and finally agility. So talk to me about agility. What does that mean?
Yeah, agility. I don't know. Is that
not
like
really seeing that one?
I'm agile, I'm exercising. I don't know. So Marriott showed real agility and agility, their ability to change and move. And they ended up decentralizing some decisions after COVID. So they started letting local general managers adapt quickly because based on guest behavior. So taking the central decision making and pushing it out because there was a lot of guest behavior that was changing. There were health regulations that were spotty all over the place, and obviously staffing needs.
It's really interesting, right? Because when I think about agility, right, and I was having this conversation with somebody. I don't think it was you. I think it was somebody else. But I was we were out. I went out with friends, and I was talking about giving people their sandbox. And by that, I mean, like, build the boundaries of where they need to go to the next level, or they need to go to a peer, whatever, but allow them to do their job within that space. And they may do it differently. But what happens is, as long as they're in that sandbox, even if they're doing it differently, probably not impacting. And this then becomes an incubator for innovation, right? And so now, like, oh, you know what's working over here at this hotel, right? Because Marriott, can we do that at our hotel? Well, maybe it'll work. Let's try it, right? And so then all of a sudden these ideas are sprouting out, and building that agility, that flexibility can be really beneficial. And I love the concept of giving the decision to the person that should be making that decision, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of times, I worked for this nonprofit. I was a consultant for this nonprofit, and one of their biggest challenges was that everything had to be run by the CEO or COO. Like, any decision that was being made in the organization, if we're going to order toilet paper, it needed to be run. Okay, that's an exaggeration. But, right? And so that's a problem, right? And so we have to downline decision-making so the right person is making that right decision, because they're the ones that are going to see how it's impacting the organization. And we have your 3 or 4 levels up, you're not going to know. You may have a thought and a process, but you don't know exactly what's happening. If you get into that, you become the micromanager, and it's not going to work. Go back to that leadership development, right?
And that agility isn't about chaos either, is it? I mean, it's about speed and trust. And, like you said, if everything has to be run up up to the top, you're not going to be able to respond and be very agile to changing conditions.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? And so to help you sleep better, right? Because we started this conversation about us not sleeping well. We're hoping we gave you some tools and tricks to help you sleep a little bit better, get into a better place. But shorten approval changes, right? And so shorten those approval chains, make sure that the right people are making the right decision, and then put decision making to the front line, right? Those are the really 2 things that we kind of want to walk away with, because I think that's going to help your organization. That's a hard one, right? Because that means managers and leaders are giving up control, but it's better for your organization as long as you're teaching those people how to make decisions, right? So kind of doing that. All right. So over the last 2 episodes, Chuck, we covered the 9 big worries that HR leaders are having and managers are having. And more importantly, we shared stories and strategies to help people be better. I love this conversation.
Yeah, and once again, if you'd like more resources, go to the team at hrstories.com. Check out our our resources there, some of our pre-recorded classes, but also you can grab the Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, which is our book, 80 checklists. If you are an HR, if you're a small business, you need this book. It's available on Amazon.com or go to Ultimate Guide to hr.com. And if your team needs customized training, reach out. We are here to help.
You know that, Chuck, you just reminded me talking about our book. We do have the Stay Interview workbook that if you go to team@hrstories.com, look under resources, it's one of the resources there. So you can get that. I think it's like $7, $10. It's really cheap. So definitely check that out as well. That may be beneficial for people. Kind of probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I just forgot that we had that there. All right. So next week, we're going to be answering your questions. So don't do that. So make sure you're sending your questions to email us at team@hrstories.com so we can answer them live on the air. And in fact, if you want us just to answer your questions and not put them on air, please ask. We're here. We're here to help. We want to help organizations. I've had a couple people reach out to me, kind of work through their challenges and got them in a better spot, which we're here because we love helping HR people be better managers, be better at their jobs.
Yep. And until then, keep learning, keep leading, and keep making HR better.